I have all of us here, so let's get it going. We'll call the East Lyme Board of Selectmen regular meeting to order February 15, 2017. We are now starting at, we're commencing at about 18 minutes past 7. We just finished up with a special town meeting. We've said the Pledge of Allegiance twice already. So I will move on to any additional agenda or consent items. I don't believe so. So delegations, I know Representative Holly Cheeseman's here tonight to give us an update under delegations. But what's going on in Hartford, I imagine. Welcome, Mrs. Cheeseman.
Thank you.
Representative Cheeseman.
Thank you, Mr. First Selectman, Board of Selectmen. Holly Cheeseman, 16 Mitchell Drive, Niantic, Connecticut. As the First Selectman said, I thought I'd stop by and just give you a little update on what's going on in Hartford. Undoubtedly, you will have read the news in the governor's budget. Suffice it to say, this is an opening, salvo's possibly the wrong word, but the legislature will have its say. We are lucky in having Senator Formica as co-chair of appropriations, so we have a good voice there. They are holding public hearings this week and the next few weeks with the different state agencies with regard to their piece of the budget, presentations from the agencies and then the public hearings. I did send the First Selectman some information about the what East Lyme would sustain were the governor's budget to be adopted with no changes. And the town would be looking in the 17-18 fiscal year at a reduction of $5,944,830, taking into account changes to ECS funding, loss of other revenues, the additional contribution we'd be expected to make for the teachers' pensions. But as I said, this is, as I am learning and as we've seen over the past few years, the initial budget very often bears no resemblance to the one that is finally adopted through the legislature. And I can safely say that 70% of the legislature, i.e. those who do not represent the large towns that are getting significant additional revenue, want to see real changes made in this budget. Just for reference, I serve on finance, revenue, and bonding, energy and technology, and higher education and employment advancement. Obviously, from my point of view, and I hope my constituents' point of view, coming up with a budget that's equitable to our towns, my constituents in these two towns, is number one priority. And I have good companions, colleagues in Hartford. As I say, it's going to be a bipartisan effort to come up with something that is not going to inflict huge pain on our towns. The other priority, as far as I'm concerned, I'm a co-sponsor with a bill that Senator Formica has presented to allow Dominion and Millstone to bid on long-term power contracts. We all know what a valued resource and community partner Dominion is, not only in East Lyme but throughout the region. There are also about 120 individuals in East Lyme and Salem who work for Dominion, 66 retirees. They supply 60% of the power to the state of Connecticut and about a third of the power to New England. And were they to decide that it's not financially viable to operate, we'd be in a real mess. Just for the interest of this board and other boards, I've just had notification of a public hearing. A bill has been submitted, Senate Bill 154, that would require the General Assembly to adopt those portions of the budget that relate to municipal aid by March 1st of every year, toward making your budgeting process easier. I wouldn't hold your breath.
Good luck with that one.
I know, but there have been proposals. I believe Senator Kennedy and Madison has put something similar forward. Perhaps not a March 1st deadline, but that the piece that relates to municipalities should be adopted no later than May 1st. So, I think there's a realization that we have to take care of our municipalities, and certainly the Southeastern Connecticut delegation will do everything we can to make things work. I want to reiterate, please contact me at the Capitol. I can be reached there, 842-1423, or through email, holly.cheeseman@cga.ct.gov. And you know how to find me. And if you have any questions, I know we're not allowed to have interplay here, but please don't hesitate to contact me, and I will keep you posted. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Holly. It's nice to see you in the room again, even if it is on the other side of the counter here. Well represented. Thank you, Holly. I was told that the $5.9 million increase would represent about a $3 million increase to our taxes here in town. Are there any other public delegations this evening? Mr. Bialowitz?
Good evening, Mr. Nickerson and other board members. My name is John Bialowitz Jr. of 61 Walnut Hill Road in East Lyme. I would like to make some additional comments tonight. The first comment is, why haven't my comments that have been written down ever been displayed on your website or minutes of that meeting? This also happened to me with the Planning and Wetlands Commissions. I have brought this matter to their attention, and they have begun putting my letters into their minutes. Also, I would like to have my letter of February 1st be put in the Selectmen's meeting for that day, minutes for that day. This reminds me of a movie with actor Jack Nicholson in it. He said, "You can't handle the truth." I wonder if the commission members ever get my letters that I give to them, to the recording secretary at their meetings. My second comment is, are the first selectmen or board members going to make some comments on my letters during the selectmen response time that's on their agenda? My third comment is, did the first selectman talk to the appropriate department heads about my concerns that I would like to have addressed? Because they are very legit and everyone knows about them. My fourth comment is about the letter from our attorney about the damage, erosion, and sedimentation to our tributary. This has been going on since our previous administration has been in, and has not been corrected properly and enforced. It still happens with less than an inch of rain. I hope the town realizes that the Wetlands Office and Commission has many regulations to enforce and not overlooked about this matter. If this situation happened in New Jersey or California, stiff penalties, action, and enforcement of their regulations would have been started already with no excuses or delays. The last comment is, if the Ethics Commission were notified, what would they find in the hidden closets of this town? Did anyone violate the town ethics code, or was there any conflict of interest involved? We will see. Thank you, John Bialowitz Jr. And I'm going to keep coming back with more comments about the town, because we as the taxpayers have the right for explanation of our concerns and not be ignored. And I heard that the Wetlands Commission has a new chairman now, and I hope that he would look into my tributary and get the ball rolling on this problem that has been with us for over 3 years now. You know, everybody thinks that I'm making a mountain out of a molehill, but if it was on their property, they would be complaining probably worse than I am. It's just that we didn't have any problems with that tributary since my grandparents had it for 110 years. And now, all of a sudden, now we got gullies 4 feet deep, and it's not like a little stream now. It's like about 4 or 5 feet wide. And there's only one source that it came from, and it was, how do you want to say it? I'll say a nice word. Pretty ridiculous when everybody was saying that it's just water and everything else. Their water management system failed twice, and it keeps failing every frickin' rainstorm. So I'm just getting tired of it, and I'll probably see Mr. O'Connell shortly with my attorney, so we can get this resolved. Because this time, I am not going away.
That's how I take it.
Anyone else like to speak? Public delegations tonight. Anyone else? Anyone else? Moving on. Approval of the minutes of the joint BOE, BOS, BOF meeting, January 11th, 2017. We realized we didn't move those minutes forward.
I'll move to approve the minutes of the joint Board of Education, Board of Selectmen, and Board of Finance meeting of January 11th, 2017, as submitted.
Second?
A motion, it's been seconded. Any further comment? All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? Number 2 is the approval of minutes of the regular meeting of Board of Selectmen, February 1st, 2017.
Move to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of the Board of Selectmen of February 1, 2017, as submitted.
Second?
Motion and seconded. Any further comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Terrific. Consent calendar?
Move to approve the consent calendar for the meeting of February 15th, 2017, in the amount of $26,149.31.
Second?
And it's been seconded. Comments? All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? Okay. New business. It will be the continuation of the budget reviews that we didn't quite complete during the special meeting and finalize the March 1st, 2017 budget reviews. We only had 1 or 2 budgets left, so we might as well march through them as scheduled. There's the Selectmen's budget, and then the revenue, which is kind of an ongoing budget. We might want to pass on that till our last night of budget deliberations, but we can at least go through it once. So Budget 101 is the first Selectmen's budget. And going through it, you'll notice there's a reduction at the bottom of the page because we have changed out, as you know, our executive assistant who served our town for 27 years. So naturally, a new person's coming in at a different number. Everything else remains relatively flat. Just trying to go over it really quick. I dropped the transportation allowance. I just put in less for my transportation. If I'm heading up to Norwich, I just don't put in for it, frankly. So I'm just seeing a remarkable decrease. But everything else is the same. Are there any questions on the Selectmen's budget? It's your budget too. Revenue is that way in the front or way in the back?
In the front.
It is, isn't it? It's capital way in the back, right?
Yeah.
That's what it is. All right. So revenue is way up front, and revenue is a moving target. But this is our preliminary budget. It's our first look. Of course, we still have the education cost sharing at a number that, it had been reduced during the course of the year by $125,000 to $6.9 million, and we have that number still in there. There's other things that the governor's budget moves around quite substantially, of course, like pilot, I think, is down. I did a quick look at that. Was that down $200,000 coming up? $220,000 for pilot is coming down between the pilot and the Pequod and the prison properties. And there's some other things that will be coming down off the governor's budget, but we're gonna hold off on that. But if there's anything specific you'd like, Anna to expound upon or comment on, are there any questions, comments? When we get to the last night of our budget deliberations, that'll be the time to maybe make some adjustments in our revenue if necessary.
Yeah, Mark, just tuition, other districts, has that been passed down from the Board of Ed budget?
Correct. Is that going down, I remember?
It's going down 144.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just, a few less kids
Okay.
in the system, I think. And what they do, by the way, and that's kind of, you remember the state, resident state trooper is in arrears. The calculation here is in arrears too. There's adjustments that are made after the fact. They don't know who's gonna show up in September, right now. So there's a number that's pinpointed, and then every year or two, they recalc and kind of square up, if you will.
Mark, what is the mystical dog revenue? Is that for just the dog fees?
Is that
That people
833 or
Yeah.
832? That
Yeah.
is the co-share of the, remember we were talking
Oh, yeah,
about
yeah,
the
okay, I had a second for a
ACO?
reason. That's Waterford's,
That's Waterford's
Contribution.
share of the ACO.
okay, that's why it's
Along with
increased,
some
because we took on
minor miscellaneous.
It's some minor miscellaneous that go along
Yeah,
with
it's
that. Yeah. Those are,
Okay.
We're not getting that much in dog licenses, trust me.
I noted that under the proposed state budget, that all funds for youth services were deleted. We have 26,000 in our budget.
I don't think those are state funds that are in our budget. Is that not true? What number is that? What budget number?
321, middle of the first page.
Okay. Youth Services and Bureau grant, it's grant money from the Youth Services Bureau.
Right, you'll have
So
to
it is a
look
state
into
bu-
that. Right.
Yes, and
Yeah.
that is line itemed out as 0. So we may,
There's a lot of, boy, when you get into the details, I think I sent you guys a copy today of some of the,
yes.
some of the
I didn't
cuts.
have time to read all of it.
Yeah,
I did
and
notice.
there's a
Good job.
significant amount of community outreach and community support that, frankly, I'm surprised that those things are being knocked down or zeroed out, because they do deal with communities and mostly the cities. He seems to be taking care of the cities in his budget. But that's another one we're gonna have to look at. And there's several lines on here that we're just gonna have to watch the governors, or really watch what the legislature does in some of the discussions. I was told today at a COG meeting that we should wait to the last possible second to come up with our budget, but of course statutorily and by our charter, we can't do that. We have dates that we have to hit. So should the state budget come in higher or lower, cutting this and all that, we as a Board of Selectmen have the power to adjust the mill rate that has been established to meet our established budget. So our responsibility is to come in with the leanest, efficient budget as possible, and any increases in costs or decreases in town aid that come from the state would have to be passed along in a mill rate increase, or a middle of the year cut to a particular department, and that's possible too. And some of those have been identified this evening. Any other comments on the revenue with first look here?
Yeah, 602 extra duty police, is that municipal sharing of officers, or what is?
No, I think that's for money reimbursed for highway jobs, is that correct?
Oh, it's outside
Outside?
police overtime.
Oh,
Okay. Do we expect an increase in that? 20,000?
Yeah, the trend has been much more than the 30.
Yeah.
So we're going for 50. There's just been a lot of jobs between CLMP and tree cutting and all sorts of different jobs out there. So yeah,
Yep, good.
and if Costco starts cutting that road and trying to redo some of that work, some of that will come onto our police as well.
Is the actual 2016 number what's come in to date, or is that projected based on where we're at today.
So actual 2016 is last fiscal year,
July 1, June
June
30th.
30th, 2016. And then the 16-17, that's what we're projecting to come in for this fiscal year. And then 17-18 is what we're proposing for next fiscal year. So it actually represents 3 fiscal years, the one ending June 30th, 2016 actual numbers.
Thank you.
You know, part of the giveth and taketh away of the state is the MRSA money, which is a 300 level budget, but doesn't have any numbers next to it. MRSA, sales tax sharing, that actually has a $300,000+ contribution from the state, and we had zeroed it out because the initial discussions with the state is that that program was going away. So, again, we get a little bit here, but they take a whole lot somewhere else. So that is the revenue sheet as it stands today. I would expect a couple more changes between now and when we plan on voting on that. Okay, any other questions? Okay, that's our budget review for this evening. We were at it since 5 o'clock this afternoon, folks. See you now. Next on the agenda is the authorization, authorizing expenditure from contingency for the purchase of the Voight.
Excuse me,
What am I missing?
the other thing we were gonna do is finalize the agenda for the March 1st meeting. Remember at the last meeting, and I think that's in your packets.
Is that what was floating around here? No, that's 2 of these. Yeah, so, while we're still in budget discussions, we can talk about our, and you see what's coming up. So we're gonna have a special meeting on March 1st at 5 PM. It's 2 weeks from this evening. We'll see the Parks and Rec, Library, Commission on Aging, Historic Properties Commission, Smith Harris, contingency, probably some more revenue review, and that's all we'll do that evening, and then we'll be moving to a regular, there'll be, of course, we'll have a sign call this evening, so we will also be going, like this evening, to a town meeting, and then back to the budget discussion if necessary.
And March 1st is really our deadline.
That's our last meeting date. Our deadline is, well, if we needed a special meeting after that,
It would have to be after that.
it would have to be after that, but before March 8th, we'll go to the Board of Finance. If there are any other budgets you'd like to see, as you go through your book and review, we certainly can arrange that to be put on the agenda this evening, or as they start piling up, we can certainly look at another
Mark,
evening.
the town building committee, if the school project goes forward, is that sufficient for the town building committee? It looks like it's been zeroed out every year just because they haven't met.
Right. If they go forward, there won't be any building going on probably, and most of this.
So it'll be more of the planning stages, but they will
Yeah.
probably start meeting.
They
But
meet a little bit. We could, we'll throw some money, find some contingency money and move it over. But you're
Okay.
right.
But
Maybe we
they-
want to give them a couple $100.
There is money in their budget.
yeah, it's
but-
875. I mean,
Gotcha.
maybe that's
Be
enough.
plenty.
It's
Not
most-
ready to go to June 30th.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, yeah.
Okay.
Because I
Plenty
don't
of
think
money.
there's gonna be many meetings, because really this year is the,
Yeah,
the.
it'd be
Engineering and
and
planning
go out
stage.
to bid, so
Yeah.
maybe
Okay.
towards the end of the fiscal year when they're getting ready to
Yeah.
award the contracts.
Well, they want to be in the ground by the time the kiddies are getting ready, so there'll be some prep work. So they'll be active by April, May that year, we would hope, if they're on schedule. But that $800 will cover them through some recording secretary issues. If we need to find a couple $100, we'll do that.
Okay.
Okay. Good point.
So that's the understanding that they can come back to us and request additional funds, which we withdraw from the contingency.
Absolutely. I think we're better off leaving it there and going to a contingency. Again, we're talking a couple $100. Nothing more than that to get them to June 30th. The significant building would occur after that.
Well, I would assume that they're gonna begin meeting monthly, I would assume, to begin their prep work and what
Right.
they need to do.
Right,
Get their act together.
right.
Yeah, they haven't met since I've been ex officio.
Yeah, they haven't met for a couple of years.
Easiest ex officio
easily.
duties I've had.
So we will now move to the authorizing expenditure from contingency for the purchase of the VoIP phones. Bill Scheer has done yeoman's work here, as he always does. He tackled this process with bringing in several different companies for quotes. We had demonstrations in this building. We looked at quality of service. We looked at what we were going to get, the bells and whistles of all these different programs, and Bill has the solution.
I'll give you a brief overview.
Thank
If
you.
you want more, just say more. I could talk for an
Say
hour
more.
if you really wanted me to. This is actually probably a good thing that we've dragged our feet on this a little bit because technology has changed just in the last 3 to 5 years. The phone system we have now is over 20 years old. It's old copper lines. The boxes downstairs, it was made by Lucent. They're bankrupt. You can't, but you have to buy parts on eBay now. So when that thing breaks, we go to eBay. So about 5 or 6 years ago, we started talking capital because we wanted to do a voice over VoIP, voice over IP. That's what it stands for. Basically, your telephone calls go over the internet. So 4 or 5 years ago, when we started talking about that, the main substantial companies that did this, you'd have a computer downstairs that would have your voicemail and run your systems. Similar to what we had before, except it's all internet-based. Now, with the advent of better fiber, with more resilient fiber lines, cheaper data storage, and everything is just much more redundant, all these cloud companies have popped up where they host your voicemail somewhere else in a data level 5 data center that's something you see on TV, and they have their data center here, and they have a couple other ones, and they mirror all the data across the United States, so that if one blows up or something happens, your data is in 3 or 4 different spots. So we brought in 4 different companies. We interviewed them. We don't want a fly-by-night company. We want somebody that's got a name, that's going to be around in 20, 30 years, because we plan on being here that long. We started with 4 companies, and we worked our way down to 2. The 2 were Digital Back Office and Frontier. Frontier is, as you know, our current telephone provider. You guys do have that spreadsheet, the monetary spreadsheet. So we actually were originally thinking about leasing phones so that we could just go into this as, using our same budget, lease phones, and not pay any more. But as I investigated it, it's much cheaper for us to actually purchase the phones, and our payback is 3